Commander Zekthor stood in front of the large screen in his office. His 4 eyes looked at the words displayed there, and he felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt worry. Actually, it was more than worry. It was fear. For 30 years, Zekthor had worked for the Galactic Observation Corps. His job was simple. He watched different species fight wars. He recorded everything. He wrote reports. He sent the reports to his bosses. Then he moved on to the next assignment. It was boring work, but it was safe work. Zekthor liked safe work. He had seen many species fight. He had watched the Krell, who fought with perfect formations and strict rules. He had observed the Tashari, who cared deeply about honor in battle. He had documented the Vainer, who used their minds to attack enemies. Every species he watched followed patterns. They made sense. Zekthor could predict what they would do, but now the screen showed his new assignment. The words glowed in front of him, and he read them again, hoping they would change. They did not change human conflict theater. Eden 4, duration 6 cycles. Non-interference protocol enforced humans. Of all the species in the galaxy, he had to watch humans. A soft voice came from behind him. I heard about your new job. It was Lyrasol, a being made of light and air who worked in the office next to his. My condolences. Zekthor turned to look at her floating form. They cannot be worse than the Krell Wars, he said. But his voice did not sound confident. Lyrasol made a sound like wind chimes, laughing. The Krell follow rules, Zekthor. Brutal rules, yes, but they are rules. Humans do not seem to understand that war has rules. Zekthor wanted to argue, but he had heard the stories. Every observer who came back from watching humans had the same look in their eyes. The look of someone who had seen something they could not explain. 3 days later, Zekthor arrived at Eden 4. His observation pod hung in space high above the planet. The pod was invisible to human sensors. Inside, he had everything he needed. Screens showed him different views. Sensors let him see and hear everything happening on the planet below. He was completely safe. Eden 4 was a pretty planet. Green forests covered much of the land. Blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight. Humans had built several small cities on the southern continent. It looked peaceful, but Zekthor knew it was not peaceful. The planet was divided. Some humans wanted to stay part of the Earth Federation. Other humans wanted independence. They called themselves the Colonial Liberation Front. Both sides had armies. Both sides were ready to fight. Zekthor read the reports. The Federation was sending soldiers to take back the northern continent. The Liberation Front was waiting for them in strong defensive positions. It should be a simple battle. The two sides would fight. One side would win. Zekthor would write his report. Everything would be normal. He focused his sensors on a group of Federation soldiers. They were preparing to go into battle. They checked their weapons. They put on their armor. They loaded their supplies onto aircraft. Everything looked normal. Then Zekthor noticed one soldier doing something strange. She was a lieutenant named Kate Morrison. She pulled out a small photograph from her pocket. Zekthor zoomed in to see it better. The photograph showed 2 small children smiling at the camera. Morrison looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she kissed it and put it back in her armor. Zekthor spoke into his recorder. Human soldier shows emotional attachment to offspring before combat. This is a weakness. The soldier is distracted by feelings. He nodded to himself. This made sense. Emotions made soldiers weak. Every species knew this. He did not know how wrong he was. The battle started when the sun came up. Zekthor expected the Federation to attack in the normal way. They would bomb from space first. Then ground soldiers would advance slowly. They would take control of the territory step by step. This was how civilized species fought wars. It was clean. It was organized. It was predictable. But humans did not do any of those things. Instead, small pods fell from the sky like meteors. They dropped right into enemy territory. Anti-aircraft guns fired at them. Zekthor watched as 3 pods exploded in the air. 15 humans died instantly. The other pods kept falling. Zekthor could not believe what he was seeing. The humans had dropped their soldiers right into the middle of enemy forces. They were surrounded. They were outnumbered. By all military logic, this was suicide. Lieutenant Morrison's pod crashed through the trees of a thick forest. The impact was violent. Zekthor's sensors detected her heart beating very fast. Her body was flooding with chemicals that humans called adrenaline. She was scared. but she was also smiling. Morrison activated her radio. "Blue team, sound off," she said. Her voice was steady even though she was clearly frightened. One by one, her soldiers answered. 7 had survived the landing. Only 7. Zekthor checked the enemy numbers. There were roughly 200 Liberation Front soldiers in this area, 7 against 200. This was not a battle.
This was a massacre waiting to happen. Morrison checked her weapon.
"All right, people," she said to her team. "We have a job to do. Let's show these separatists why you don't mess with Earth." Then the 7 soldiers started moving, but they did not retreat. They did not call for help. They did not try to hide and survive. They attacked. Zekthor watched in complete shock. The 7 humans split into 3 small teams. Each team moved toward a different target. One team headed for an enemy supply depot. Another team went toward the enemy command post. The third team, led by Morrison herself, moved toward the vehicle storage area. This made no sense. No sense at all. These were not military tactics. This was insanity. A young soldier named Danny Price spoke over the radio. "Alpha team has eyes on the supply depot. I count about 50 enemies. 2 gun positions. Light armor." Morrison answered calmly. "Copy that, Alpha. We're 300 meters east of you." "Beta team, what's your status?" A woman named Lisa Hayes replied. "In position at the command post. Security is heavy. At least 30 soldiers outside, probably more inside." Zekthor's mandibles clicked nervously. The humans were planning to attack positions where they were outnumbered 30-1. This could not be real. He checked his equipment. Everything was working correctly. This was really happening. Morrison continued giving orders. "Listen up. We have 15 minutes before enemy patrols change shifts. Alpha team, you take the supply depot. Plant explosives and get out. Beta team, the command post is yours. I want their communications destroyed. Charlie team is with me. We're going to make sure nobody can drive away when this starts." Danny Price's voice was tight with tension. "Lieutenant, that's a lot to do. If one team gets trapped, then the other teams finish their jobs and leave," Morrison interrupted. She spoke as if she was discussing the weather, not life and death. "We all knew what we signed up for. Now let's get to work." The 3 teams moved out. Zekthor watched them disappear into the forest. He sat in his observation pod, his manipulator appendages shaking slightly. What kind of species was this? What kind of soldiers were these? More importantly, what had he gotten himself into? Zekthor looked at the mission timer. He had 6 cycles left on this assignment. 6 cycles of watching humans fight. For the first time in his 30-year career, Commander Zekthor wondered if he would survive his assignment with his sanity intact. The humans were not like anything he had studied before. And something told him that the next 6 cycles would be the longest of his life. Zekthor had watched 47 different species fight wars. He thought he understood combat. Armies established defensive positions. They secured supply lines. They advanced in organized formations. They tried to minimize casualties. These were the basic rules of warfare. Every civilized species in the galaxy followed these rules. Humans apparently had never heard of these rules. Lieutenant Morrison and her tiny team of 7 soldiers should have retreated. They should have hidden and waited for reinforcements. They should have done anything except what they were actually doing. But instead, they moved directly toward the largest groups of enemy forces. Zekthor focused his sensors on Alpha Team. Danny Price and his partner, a woman named Amy Chen, crawled slowly through the undergrowth toward the supply depot. They could see the fence. They could see the guards walking patrol routes. They could see the sensors mounted on posts. They should have been spotted immediately. The enemy had good security. The guards were alert. The sensors were working properly, but the 2 humans just waited. For 20 long minutes, they lay perfectly still in the bushes. They watched. They learned the patrol patterns. They figured out where the sensors could not see. They calculated timing down to the second. Then they moved. Zekthor had never seen anything like it. The 2 humans flowed through the defenses like water flowing around rocks. When a guard looked left, they moved right. When a sensor swept one area, they were already in a blind spot. In less than 1 minute, they were inside the perimeter fence. Once inside, they moved quickly. They placed small explosive devices on fuel containers. They attached bombs to ammunition storage buildings. Their hands worked fast and efficient. They had done this before. Many times before, Danny Price whispered into his radio. Charges set. 2 minutes until boom time. Moving to extraction point. They were halfway back to the fence when a guard saw them. What happened next shocked Zekthor to his core. Instead of running away or surrendering, the two humans immediately attacked. 2 humans against 12 armed guards. Price's rifle made 3 sharp sounds. 2 guards fell down before they could shout for help. Amy Chen threw a small device that exploded with bright light and loud noise. The other guards grabbed their faces, blind and deaf. Chen moved among them like a dancer. Her knife found weak points in their armor. 1 guard. 2 guards. 3 guards down, it was over in seconds. The guards were dead or unconscious. Price and Chen were already running back into the forest. Behind them, the explosives detonated. The supply depot turned into a giant fireball that lit up the morning sky. Zekthor spoke into his recorder, his voice shaking. 2 human soldiers just defeated 12 guards and destroyed a major supply depot. This should not be possible. This violates basic combat mathematics. Across the forest, Beta Team was executing their own assault. Sergeant Lisa Hayes and her 2 companions reached the enemy command post. They did not bother with stealth this time. They simply blew a hole in the wall and rushed inside, shooting anyone who pointed a weapon at them. The enemy commander, a man named Colonel Fletcher, barely had time to react. Hayes shot his communications equipment first, then pointed her rifle at his chest. "You're done, Fletcher," Hayes said calmly. "Tell your people to stand down." Fletcher stared at her in disbelief. "You're crazy. You're outnumbered 50 to 1 on this planet. Even if you kill me, there are thousands more soldiers here." "Then I guess we'll be busy," Hayes replied. Her voice was flat. Her eyes were cold. "Last chance. Stand down or die here. Choose now." Through his sensors, Zekthor could see that Hayes meant every word. She had already accepted that she might die today. She was not afraid anymore. And that made her more dangerous than any creature Zekthor had ever studied. Colonel Fletcher slowly raised his hands. "All units, this is Fletcher. Stop shooting. I repeat, cease fire." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Morrison and her team had reached the vehicle depot. Unlike the other teams, they did not use stealth. They walked up to the main gate and knocked on it like they were visiting friends. When the guard opened the small window to look out, Morrison smiled at him. "Hello? We're here to destroy all your vehicles. You can let us in or we can come in anyway. Your choice. But we're on a schedule, so decide quickly." The guard stared at her. Then he started laughing. "Lady, are you serious? There are 40 armed soldiers behind this gate." Morrison kept smiling. "I know, that's why I'm giving you 30 seconds to evacuate them. Clock's ticking." The guard was still laughing when Morrison's teammate, a man named Chris Walker, fired a rocket at the gate. The explosion tore through the metal like paper. Morrison ran through the smoke before it cleared. What followed was not really a battle. It was a demonstration of what happened when humans stopped being polite. Morrison moved through the depot like a storm. Her rifle fired in short, precise bursts. Each burst found a target. Her teammates covered her flanks, their movements perfectly coordinated. But what amazed Zekthor was not their skill. It was their attitude. They were laughing. In the middle of a firefight surrounded by enemies, the humans were actually having fun. "Chris, left side," Morrison shouted, grinning as she ducked behind a vehicle. "I see him," Chris replied, firing a burst that sent 3 enemies diving for cover. "These guys really need better tactics." The third team member, a woman named Julie Ryan, threw a grenade with casual precision. "Maybe we should offer them training lessons after this." Zekthor felt something he had never felt while observing warfare. He felt afraid, not afraid for the humans, afraid of the humans. These soldiers were not fighting because they had to. They were fighting because some deep part of them wanted to. They enjoyed the challenge. They thrived in the chaos. 15 minutes later, all 3 teams met at their rally point. All 7 humans had survived. Behind them, the enemy forces on Eden 4 were in complete chaos. Their supplies were destroyed. Their command structure was broken. Their vehicles were burning wrecks. 7 humans had done what should have required hundreds of soldiers. "Good work, people," Morrison said, checking her ammunition. "Phase 1 is complete. Now let's move on to the hard part." Zekthor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "That was the easy part?" he whispered to himself. He remembered what Lyrasol had said. Humans do not understand that war has rules. Now Zekthor understood what she meant. Humans knew the rules. They just did not care about them. Over the next 2 days, Zekthor watched the 7-soldier team continue their mission. They ambushed patrols. They sabotaged equipment. They spread confusion and fear throughout the enemy ranks. Every time Zekthor thought they would finally be caught, they did something unexpected and escaped. The Liberation Front had 200 soldiers in that region. But those 200 lived in constant fear of 7 humans who could appear anywhere, strike hard, and vanish like ghosts. On the 3rd day, Federation reinforcements arrived. 2,000 fresh soldiers landed on Eden 4. The Liberation Front, already demoralized by Morrison's team, began to collapse. But what happened next shocked Zekthor even more than the fighting. When Liberation Front soldiers surrendered, the Federation troops did not execute them. They did not torture them. They treated their wounds. They gave them food and water. They treated the enemy soldiers like wayward brothers who had made mistakes. Zekthor watched a Federation medic named Peter Grant, working frantically to save the life of a Liberation Front soldier. This same soldier had been trying to kill Federation troops just hours earlier. Why? Zekthor asked the empty pod. Why save someone who tried to kill you? He had no answer. This behavior made no sense according to any military doctrine he knew. That evening, Zekthor reviewed all his recordings. He had filled multiple data storage units. He had documented tactics that should not work. He had recorded behavior that defied explanation, and he still had most of his assignment left to complete. Zekthor looked at Eden 4 on his screen. The humans down there were already rebuilding what they had destroyed. They were helping former enemies. They were preparing for whatever came next. Request consultation with senior analysts, Zekthor transmitted to his headquarters. Human warfare does not conform to known patterns. Standard assessment models are insufficient. The response came 3 days later. Continue observation. Collect more data. Zekthor sighed. More data. He already had more data than he could understand. What he needed was an explanation for why humans fought the way they did. But he suspected that explanation would be even more disturbing than what he had already seen. The final 2 weeks of Zekthor's assignment brought a ceasefire. The Colonial Liberation Front, decimated and demoralized, agreed to peace talks. The Federation, bloody but victorious, accepted the offer. Zekthor attended the negotiations remotely. His sensors focused on the diplomatic station where both sides met. At least this would be civilized, he thought. Diplomatic protocols were universal. Even humans understood how to negotiate peace. He should have known better by now. The Federation sent Ambassador Rachel Stone to lead negotiations. She was a woman with 20 years of diplomatic experience. Across the table sat Marcus Flynn, the political leader of what remained of the Liberation Front. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Flynn spoke first, his voice tight with anger. Let me be clear. We fought for independence. We fought for the right to govern ourselves without Earth's interference. We lost the war, but we haven't abandoned our principles. Rachel Stone listened quietly. Her hands were folded on the table. When Flynn finished, she spoke softly. Mr. Flynn, may I ask you something? Why did you really leave the Federation? Flynn blinked, caught off guard by the question. I just told you, independence, self-determination. No, Stone said gently. Those are ideals. Noble ideals. But ideals don't make people risk their lives. What was the real reason? What hurt you so badly that you were willing to tear humanity apart? Flynn was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was raw with pain. My daughter, Emma, she got sick. She needed treatment only available on Earth. The bureaucracy took 6 months to approve her transfer. By then, he stopped, unable to continue. I'm sorry, Stone said. Zekthor could hear genuine emotion in her voice. The system failed you. It failed, Emma. You're right to be angry. Don't patronize me, Flynn started to say. I'm not, Stone interrupted. I'm agreeing with you. The Federation isn't perfect. We're a bureaucracy trying to govern dozens of worlds across hundreds of light years. We make mistakes. We move too slowly. We fail people. She leaned forward. But burning it all down and starting over? That doesn't honor Emma's memory. That just means more daughters die while we fight each other. Flynn stared at her. His eyes were wet. So what do you propose? Reconciliation, Stone said simply. Not surrender. Not punishment, reconciliation. You rejoin the Federation, but with real autonomy, local governance, faster approval processes for medical transfers, a real voice in how things are run. She paused. And we honor everyone who died, Federation and Liberation Front both. We remember that they were all human, all family. Sekthor watched, fascinated. The military battle was over, but this diplomatic battle was just as fierce. It was fought with words instead of weapons, but it was no less intense. Flynn struggled with himself. Sekthor could see the conflict on his face. Finally, he nodded slowly. I want those terms in writing, and I want a memorial, for all of them. Both sides. Done, Stone agreed immediately. We'll build it on Eden 4, a reminder of what we survived and what we must never do again. The negotiations continued for 3 more days, but the outcome was certain after that first conversation. The humans had proven they could destroy each other efficiently. Now they were proving they could build together just as effectively. On the final day of his assignment, Sekthor began compiling his report. He had filled 43 data storage units with observations, tactical analyses, and behavioral studies. Now he had to make sense of it all. He began recording. Final report. Human Military Capabilities Assessment. Observer. Commander Sekthor. Duration 6 standard cycles. Location. Eden Sector, Human Space. He organized his thoughts carefully. Summary of findings. Humanity represents a Category 7 threat level to galactic stability. This classification is unprecedented in observation corps history. Detailed analysis. Human warfare does not follow established tactical doctrine. Where other species seek to minimize casualties and achieve objectives efficiently, humans pursue victory through methods that defy analysis. They embrace risk. They adapt instantly. They refuse to accept defeat even in tactically impossible situations. Their psychological profile is equally disturbing. Humans form intense emotional bonds with their combat units. This should create vulnerability. Instead, these bonds make them more dangerous. They fight not just for objectives, but for each other. This transforms military units into what humans call families. This creates unit cohesion that cannot be broken through conventional means. Most concerning is their relationship with death. Humans are aware of their mortality, yet they routinely risk death for causes they consider worthy. They honor their fallen. They grieve their losses. Then they continue fighting with undiminished resolve. Death does not deter them. If anything, casualties increase their determination. Sekthor stopped. His mandibles clicked in frustration. How could he make the collective understand what he had witnessed? He continued recording. Strategic recommendation. The Galactic Collective must never engage in military conflict with humanity. In conventional warfare, we would likely achieve initial victories through superior numbers and technology. However, humans do not fight conventional wars. They fight total wars. They adapt faster than we can plan. They take casualties that would break other species and keep advancing. They turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Most importantly, humans are capable of extraordinary violence. Yet they consistently choose restraint. They could have exterminated the Colonial Liberation Front. Instead, they offered reconciliation. This capacity for mercy, combined with their capacity for war, makes them unique in recorded history. Personal observation. I have spent 6 cycles watching humans fight. I have witnessed acts of incredible courage and horrible brutality, often from the same individuals within minutes. I have seen them laugh while facing death. I have seen them weep while achieving victory. I have watched them turn battlefields into nightmares and then rebuild what they destroyed with gentle care. Sekthor's appendages trembled as he approached his conclusion. Final assessment. Humanity is not ready to join the Galactic Collective as equal members, not because they lack technology or sophistication, but because they would fundamentally alter the nature of the collective itself. They do not accept limits. They do not acknowledge impossibility. They do not follow rules they consider unjust. If humanity joins the collective, they will either save us all or destroy everything we have built. I cannot predict which. Recommendation: maintain observer status. Continue monitoring, and pray to whatever gods exist that humans never decide we are their enemy. He stopped recording. He sat in silence for a long moment. Then he added one final note just for himself, off the official record. I was assigned to watch humans fight. I have done so. I have learned something that terrifies me. Humans do not fight like warriors. They fight like forces of nature. You cannot defeat a hurricane with tactics. You cannot outmaneuver an earthquake. You can only survive and hope you are still standing when it passes. The galaxy believes it understands warfare. The Krell have their honor. The Vayner have their psychic powers. The Tashari have their ancient traditions. Humans have something far more dangerous. They have each other. And they have absolutely no quit in them. I regret this assignment more than any other in my career. Not because I failed, but because I succeeded. I now know what humans are capable of. That knowledge will haunt me for the rest of my life. Zekthor transmitted his report to collective headquarters. He prepared to leave the Eden sector, but he knew the galaxy had not seen the last of humanity's impact, and he knew he had been right about his reports, so he had never regretted anything more than being assigned to watch humans fight. Zekthor's observation pod prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. His mission was complete. 6 cycles of watching humans fight. 6 cycles that felt like 60. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt haunted. He took one last look at the worlds below. On Eden 4, construction crews were building the memorial that Ambassador Stone had promised. Human soldiers and former Liberation Front soldiers worked side by side. They were honoring their dead while building their future together. In orbit, Admiral Patterson met with her ship captains. They were already planning for the next crisis, the next conflict, the next impossible situation that humans would somehow overcome. In the hospital, medics like Peter Grant saved lives. They treated friend and former foe with equal care. No distinction, no hatred, just duty and compassion. And somewhere on some distant human world, a child looked up at the stars. That child dreamed of the day they would venture into the great dark, ready to face whatever waited there with the same courage that defined their species. Zekthor's pod jumped to faster-than-light travel. Human space disappeared behind him, but the images stayed in his mind. They would stay forever. 3 weeks after leaving Eden 4, Zekthor sat in the Observation Corps briefing room. Senior analysts had reviewed his report. Now they wanted to ask questions. The room was full of observers from many species. All of them had read his assessment. All of them looked skeptical. Director Cal Shear, a distinguished Krell commander, spoke first. Commander Zekthor, your report makes extraordinary claims. Category 7 threat assessment? That classification has never been used in our history. Yes, Director, Zekthor replied, because we have never encountered a species like humanity. Your report suggests they are invincible, another analyst said. This was Subdirector Narafel, an ethereal being known for logical analysis. Surely this is an exaggeration. Every species has weaknesses. I did not say they are invincible, Zekthor corrected. They can be killed. Their ships can be destroyed. They are made of flesh and metal like everyone else. But they do not think like everyone else. They do not fight like everyone else. Director Cal Shear leaned forward. Explain. Zekthor gathered his thoughts. We study warfare as a science. We calculate odds. We minimize risk. We seek advantage. Humans do all of this too. But when calculations say they should lose, they do not accept it. They find a way to change the calculation. That's just stubbornness, someone said from the back of the room. No, Zekthor said firmly. Stubbornness is refusing to adapt. Humans adapt constantly. They improvise. They turn weakness into strength. They make the enemy's advantages work against them. Narafel's form shimmered. Can you provide specific examples? Lieutenant Morrison's team, Zekthor said immediately. 7 soldiers against 200. They should have died in minutes. Instead, they destroyed supply lines, eliminated command structure, and crippled enemy mobility. All within one day. Perhaps they had superior technology, suggested another analyst. No, Zekthor replied. Both sides had similar equipment. The difference was psychology. Morrison's team knew they might die. They accepted it. That acceptance freed them to take risks that others would not take. That's just recklessness, Director Cal Shear said. Is it? Zekthor challenged. They all survived. They completed their mission. If that's recklessness, it's incredibly effective recklessness. The room fell silent. Zekthor continued. Admiral Patterson's fleet engagement in the Moran Nebula. She was outnumbered 3-1. Standard tactics said she should lose, so she threw out standard tactics. She turned the nebula into a weapon. She used chaos as cover. She destroyed 42 enemy ships while losing only 3 of her own. Anyone could have thought of using a nebula for cover, Narafel pointed out. Could they? Zekthor asked. Because Admiral Webb did not think of it. He's a trained military commander with decades of experience, but he followed standard doctrine. Patterson ignored doctrine. That's why she won. Director Kalshir tapped his claws on the table. What about their peace negotiations? You mentioned they showed mercy to defeated enemies. Yes, Zekthor confirmed. Ambassador Stone did not demand surrender. She offered reconciliation. She acknowledged the Federation's failures. She gave the Liberation Front a path back to unity without humiliation. That's a sign of weakness, someone said. Is it? Zekthor asked. Marcus Flynn was ready to fight to the death. One conversation with Stone and he agreed to peace terms. She won a diplomatic victory that military force could not have achieved. How is that weakness? The room was quiet again. The analysts exchanged glances. Finally, Director Kalshir spoke. Your recommendation is that we never engage humans militarily. That seems extreme. It is not extreme, Zekthor said quietly. It is necessary. Listen carefully to what I am telling you. If the collective goes to war with humanity, we might win initial battles. We have more ships, more soldiers, better technology. We would have every advantage. He paused, letting that sink in. But humans do not care about initial battles. They care about final victories. They will adapt to our technology. They will learn from our tactics. They will take casualties that would break any other species and keep fighting. They will turn our strengths against us. They will find ways to win that we cannot predict because we cannot think like they do. And if we destroy their worlds? Someone asked. If we make it impossible for them to continue? Zekthor's 4 eyes focused on the speaker. Then we prove we are their enemy, and you do not want humans to consider you their enemy. I watched them fight each other and they still showed mercy. What do you think they would do to an alien species that destroyed their worlds? They would not stop until we were extinct. Not out of hate. Out of simple determination. The room was completely silent now. Every analyst stared at Zekthor. You're saying we should fear them, Director Kalshir said slowly. No, Zekthor replied. Fear implies they are actively threatening us. They are not. They are busy with their own problems. I am saying we should respect them, understand what they are capable of, and never ever give them a reason to unite against us. Narafel spoke softly. What if they decide to expand into collective space? Then we negotiate, Zekthor said firmly. We trade. We establish boundaries. We treat them as equals, because the alternative is war, and war with humanity is unwinnable in any meaningful sense. Director Kalshir was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Your report will be forwarded to the Collective Council with our endorsement. We will recommend observer status continue indefinitely. No contact unless they initiate it. The briefing ended. Analysts filed out, murmuring among themselves. Zekthor remained seated, staring at nothing. Lyrosol drifted over to him. You really believe they are that dangerous? I know they are, Zekthor replied. But dangerous is not the right word. They are not predators waiting to attack. They are survivors who refuse to quit. That makes them more dangerous than any predator. Will the council listen? Lyrosol asked. I don't know, Zekthor admitted. I hope so, because if they do not, if the collective ever goes to war with humanity, I suspect I will be writing a very different report. One about how humanity conquered the galaxy, or how we destroyed each other trying to stop them. Lyrosol shimmered uncertainly. You really think they could conquer the entire galaxy? Zekthor thought about Lieutenant Morrison leading her tiny team against impossible odds. He thought about Admiral Patterson turning chaos into victory. He thought about Ambassador Stone winning peace through empathy. Yes, he said quietly, I think they could. If they wanted to. The real question is whether they want to. He stood up slowly, his appendages aching from tension. The galaxy is about to learn something important, Zekthor said. Humanity is here to stay. We can either accept them as neighbors and allies, or we can make them our enemies. I have seen what they do to their enemies. He looked at Lyrosol directly. I strongly recommend we choose to be neighbors. Zekthor left the briefing room. Behind him, the analysts continued their discussions. Above him, the collective council would debate his report. But Zekthor knew the truth. The debate did not matter. Humanity was already changing the galaxy. The only question was whether the rest of the galaxy would adapt fast enough. And adaptation, as he had learned, was something humans did better than anyone else. Week 3 of Zekthor's observation brought new horrors. The word horrors was not too strong. From a military analysis perspective, what he was witnessing was absolutely horrifying. The Colonial Liberation Front had surrendered on Eden 4, but intelligence reports showed their main fleet gathering in the nearby Epsilon sector. 73 warships, several heavy cruisers, one captured Federation dreadnought. It was a powerful force. The Federation response was 22 ships, 22 against 73. The math was simple and brutal. The Federation was outnumbered more than 3-1. Zekthor relocated his observation pod to watch the space battle. Finally, he thought with relief, he would see proper military doctrine. Space battles had rules. Ships maneuvered in formations. Commanders followed established strategies. There were protocols that everyone understood. Surely humans could not turn space combat into the same chaotic mess as ground warfare. He was wrong. Again, Admiral Grace. Patterson commanded the Federation fleet from her flagship, the EFS Defiant. Zekthor focused his sensors on the bridge. He listened to the tactical discussion. Their formation is solid, said Captain Henry Lee, the tactical officer. They've learned from previous battles. Their heavy ships are protected. Smaller ships provide screens. If we engage directly, we'll take heavy losses. Recommendations? Admiral Patterson asked. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Standard fleet engagement, ma'am. We engage their screening force. We try to draw out their capital ships. We exploit gaps in their formation. Patterson studied the tactical display for a moment. Then she smiled. Zekthor felt a chill run through his body. He had seen that smile before. No, Patterson said simply. Captain Lee blinked. Ma'am? I said no, Patterson repeated. We're not doing standard engagement. That's what they expect. That's what they've prepared for. She tapped a control and the display changed. A region of space turned red on the screen. Helm set course for the Moran Nebula. Maximum speed. The bridge crew looked at each other nervously. Commander Beth Torres, the executive officer, spoke carefully. Admiral, the Moran Nebula is a sensor dead zone. We'd be flying blind. So would they, but they outnumber us 3-1, Patterson finished the sentence. Which means in a fair fight they win. So we're not giving them a fair fight. We're giving them a nightmare. Zekthor watched in disbelief as the entire Federation fleet changed course. They accelerated toward the Moran Nebula, a region of space that no sane commander would enter voluntarily. The nebula was full of ionized gas. Electromagnetic interference made sensors useless. Communication would barely work. It was the last place anyone should fight a battle. That was exactly why the humans were going there. The Liberation Front fleet followed, as Patterson had known they would. Their commander, Admiral Carson Webb, was a former Federation officer. He understood tactics. He saw the nebula as a chance to trap Patterson's smaller force and destroy it. Both fleets entered the nebula at almost the same time. Then everything fell apart. In the swirling chaos of the Moran Nebula, normal fleet tactics became impossible. Sensors flickered and died. Communication was limited to short distances. Ships became isolated. Each ship fought its own private battle in the murk. It should have been a disaster for everyone, but the Federation humans seemed to love the chaos. Zekthor switched to gravimetric sensors, the only kind that still worked. He watched the EFS Defiant emerge from a gas cloud right behind a Liberation Front cruiser. The enemy ship never saw them coming. Patterson's weapons officer, a man named Gary Stone, fired everything at point-blank range. The cruiser was crippled before it could shoot back. Target disabled, Stone reported. Moving to next coordinates. Excellent work, Patterson replied. All ships pattern Delta, hunt in pairs. Trust your instincts. And remember, in chaos, whoever adapts fastest wins. What followed was not a battle. It was a series of ambushes. The Federation ships worked in pairs, using the nebula's interference to hide their movements. They appeared from gas clouds, struck hard, and vanished before the enemy could respond. The Liberation Front fleet tried to maintain formation. They tried to follow proper doctrine. They tried to coordinate their defense. They were picked apart ship by ship. On the destroyer EFS Vigilant, Commander Nathan Cooper found himself separated from his partner ship. His sensors were barely working when they detected a Liberation Front battlecruiser bearing down on them. The battlecruiser was 3 times their size. "All hands battle stations," Cooper announced calmly. "Engineering, give me all the power you can. Weapons, load everything we have. We're going to take a shot at this guy." His executive officer, a woman named Kelly Price, stared at him. "Sir, that's a battlecruiser. We're a destroyer. We can't possibly—" "Can't is not in our vocabulary, Commander," Cooper interrupted. "Besides, they don't know what we're going to do." "I don't know what we're going to do." "That's our advantage." The Vigilant accelerated directly toward the battlecruiser. Both ships fired weapons. The battlecruiser's guns tore through the destroyer's shields like paper, but Cooper was not trying to win a shooting match. He was trying to get close. "Ramming speed," he ordered. "Sir," Kelly Price shouted in protest. "Relax, Commander. I'm probably not actually going to ram them." Cooper grinned as his hands flew over the controls. "I'm going to make them think we're crazy enough to ram them. Weapons, the moment we're in close range, fire everything at their engines." The battlecruiser's captain realized the destroyer was on a collision course. The big ship tried to turn away, but capital ships were not built for quick maneuvers. In the 3 seconds it took to begin turning, the Vigilant closed to point-blank range. "Firing!" Gary Stone's voice came through the communication system. Every weapon the Vigilant had slammed into the battlecruiser's engines at nearly 0 range. The explosion was visible even through the nebula's interference. Cooper immediately reversed thrust, pulling away as the battlecruiser went into an uncontrolled spin. Its main engines were destroyed. "Scratch 1 battlecruiser," Cooper said cheerfully. "All right, people, let's find another dance partner." Similar stories played out across the nebula. Ships taking impossible risks. Captains making split-second decisions that defied conventional wisdom. Crews holding together when their ships were falling apart. Slowly, inevitably, the Liberation Front fleet was destroyed. Admiral Carson Webb, commanding from the captured dreadnought Liberator, finally understood what was happening. Patterson had not made a mistake. She had turned the nebula into a hunting ground. His numerically superior fleet was the prey. "All ships withdraw," he ordered. "Emergency jump. Any direction away from the nebula. We need to regroup." But Patterson had predicted this too. As Liberation Front ships tried to flee, they found Federation vessels waiting at every exit point. The humans had laid a trap within a trap. The battle ended with 42 Liberation Front ships destroyed or captured. The Federation lost 3 vessels and had 7 damaged. It should not have been possible. Every tactical analysis said the Liberation Front should have won, but tactical analysis did not account for the human factor. That night, Zekthor recorded his observations. His manipulator appendages trembled as he spoke. "The humans do not fight battles. They create conditions where victory becomes inevitable, regardless of odds. They do not follow warfare rules because they do not believe rules should limit them. They adapt faster than any species I have studied. They take risks that would paralyze other species with fear." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I am beginning to suspect that humanity is not simply another warrior species. They are warfare itself, given form and consciousness. The galaxy does not yet realize what it means to share space with such beings." Zekthor checked his remaining observation time. 2 weeks left. He was not sure his sanity would survive.